What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into yet another live edition of the Return of the Roar podcast. Myself, Chris Watkins. Oh, I got to figure out the pointing directions. This way, Frankie Cartoscelli, as always. Joining us, though, Matt George of ABC 10. Oh, geez. And Brenden Nunes of the King's Pulse podcast. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. Appreciate the invite, fellas.
Yeah, someone just go ahead and hop in whenever, gosh,
no awkward
guys.
pause or anything like that.
awkward
Right.
pause
And the
at
chemistry
all.
is unbelievable.
Chemistry is through
the
roof to start this thing.
I didn't want to blab over any of you guys, but I want to say this is like a Christmas special. This is like the King's media version of a Christmas special. Like we're all collaborating. It's beautiful. It's a Christmas miracle.
And just like my family Christmas parties, I may have invited myself on social media.
Oh, geez.
No, I mean, but you're the Matt George, man. You moved
right.
On
You're TV's Matt George.
That means nothing to anybody.
You are TV's Matt George. I don't want to bother you with our
Just assume you were busy.
activity.
Yeah,
man.
You and Kevin are always up to things. You can never assume that you guys aren't busy. All right. Well,
speaking of busy,
now that the pleasantries are out of the way, that was super smooth. Let's get into some Kings basketball, boys. Last night was possibly, was that the win of the season for you guys? I mean, that was incredibly unexpected for me. I have, on my Kings Weekly, if I can plug that, I was anticipating this Toronto game to just be an automatic L. Like there was no chance in my mind when you look at it being the second night of a back-to-back, coming after a Philadelphia team that is one of the best in the league, and then having to come back less than 24 hours later and play the Toronto Raptors was not expected for me at all. Was anyone anticipating it to even be competitive?
I mean, I'll sure. Why not? Yeah, I expect every game to be competitive for the Kings. Like that, I think that's a fair and realistic expectation to have for this Kings team every single night is that they will be competitive. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win every single game. And I think what the Kings have struggled with on this road trip to this point is closing gaps as quickly as they've been able to at home and earlier on this season, which I think has become a trait of this Kings team. But last night, when the Kings went down 16, I was feeling like, okay, here we go. Similar pattern to both the Knicks and 76ers game. There's a lot of foul calls. There's really no flow to this game. There's no rhythm. The Kings are down double digits. They're going to have to fight to put together a 5-6-7-0 run. And suddenly they battle back from 16 down to make it a game around halftime. And the second half was super competitive and a lot of fun. Of course, we could talk about the officiating. Of course, we could talk about how this game ended, De'Aaron Fox taking over and things like that. But to answer your initial question, Chris, yeah, I always expect the Kings to be competitive this year. And I don't think that's unrealistic to ask of them. They're going to have bad nights from time to time, but the Kings should be in all 82 of their games.
That's where I'm at this point, too. And I'll take credit for the lack of flow after that first one. We probably had established a rotation first time around, and I totally butchered it. So that's on me. But I actually thought this Raptors game, second to probably the Milwaukee game, was going to be the most difficult one of the road trip, second night of a back-to-back. I guess in a way it helps that you got blown out by Philly and got a little bit more rest towards the end of that game. But I think that to Matt's point, I'm totally with that I think at this point, I expect them to be competitive in every game. Anytime somebody asks me if I think they're going to win on any given night, I never know. It's a coin flip. And some nights that's a good thing. Some nights that's a bad thing. But this was just great fight by them. I was admittedly feeling pretty down after that Philly game. The New York one, to me, I was like, oh, this is an outlier, a bad shooting night. The Philly one just left a bad taste in my mouth. I thought they got totally destroyed, and it's like, oh, maybe just that stretch of good defense was actually the outlier, and they're still just a bad defensive team. But to come and bounce back the way they did in Toronto through a super physical team, and typically I think that's something that had bothered them in years prior and even earlier at the beginning of this year. But I thought they did a good job of matching the physicality, not letting the whistles affect them all too much or maybe even motivate them a bit more. But definitely one of the better wins of the season. And it's great that I think one of the other biggest ones was also the other win on this road trip in that Cleveland game.
That was my thought too. Like the Cleveland game still to me reigns supreme. I mean, both Cleveland games, the Cleveland game at home and the Cleveland game on the road. Thank you, Cleveland. Shout out Cleveland for a couple of nice wins there. But no, I think the way the Kings dropped a couple of these last couple of games in New York and Philly, when you can kind of pinpoint the exact period where things went wrong. I mean, you look at the Knicks game, the first quarter, they let Julius Randle just kind of have a field day, do whatever he wanted. The rest of the game, the Kings were actually in, I don't want to say control, but I mean, they outscored the Knicks for the remainder of the game. The defensive rating holds up. They were near 100 for the remainder of the game after being just, I think they were 128, 130 in the first quarter. Philly, obviously the second quarter, when you let the 76ers score 41 points, things aren't going to go very well. Joel Embiid and James Harden are two guys that just make a living on getting to the rim. And I think I saw a lot of comments on Twitter about how painful it is to watch the 76ers play basketball because all they try to do is draw fouls, get to the line, a lot of stoppages in that game. The Kings really have made a living off of getting out and running the pace, and they're a top 5 team in pace this season. So when you kind of take the ball out of their hands in that regard, that makes things a little hard for them. So those two games were tough, but like Brenden said, the Cavs game and last night's game kind of go hand in hand. The Kings held the Cavs scoreless the final 5 minutes of that game last Friday in Cleveland. Last night they held the Raptors to 3 points over 3.5 minutes. So that's in the final stretch of the game. So that to me, that's huge. And I'm feeling pretty good of this road trip. They have a chance to split it, which I think a year or Kings teams have passed. We're feeling just over the moon about the Kings splitting a 6-game East Coast road trip. So the vibes are high today, gentlemen. The vibes are high.
Vibes are very high. Vibes are immaculate, dare I say. I think I'm going to kind of slip back into a nice little host role. I kind of realized that you guys are all such beautiful basketball minds around here. I should just let you guys go. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna guide.
We want you have a beautiful mind, sir.
The most beautiful, even.
Coming from the guy who's doing pre and post game and halftime during Kings radio broadcasts now.
Yes.
Yes. More, I'm just tired of my takes, honestly. No, I completely agree with you guys. I mean, to Frankie's point, I think there were a lot of similarities between the Cleveland game and last night's game in terms of the, just how it ended up shaking out. I think, there's just so many beautiful points there. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I mean, this team definitely is figuring things out at the right time, and it's good to see. Sorry, I'm kind of lost right now. I was looking at the rundown. My bad.
Well, while you're trying to gather everything really quickly, Chris, I wanted to respond. I think it was Frankie that said he thought the Cleveland game earlier in this road trip was maybe a little more impressive than last night's win, and I actually feel the opposite, because I mean the 19-0 run and the finish at the end of that Cavs game was really, really impressive, but I thought the grittiness to that Sacramento Kings win is something that we've only seen a handful of times over the course of this entire playoff drought. And it's like a once in a blue moon, like when the Kings came back from down, what was it, almost like 40 points in Chicago and things like that, like these kind of outlier games that we thought were like 1 in a million for the Kings, where last night's gritty comeback was not out of the realm of possibility. And the fact that, I mean, they dealt with the trailing by 16. They dealt with the officiating. Their head coach got ejected. De'Aaron Fox, who is still not 100%, is dealing with lacerations to his face and getting two-handed shoved by Fred VanVleet. And like the Kings just found, in a very physical way against a really good Toronto Raptors team, they found a way to, in a very difficult arena to play in, they found a way to kind of guts their way to a victory that in the past we would not see. We've seen the Kings come back in games so far this season and win, but last night's felt a little bit different because, I mean, I think it's fair to say the Kings stole one in Toronto, but I don't say that with a negative connotation, like the Kings didn't deserve to win that game. They very much went into Toronto and said, this is a game that we probably should lose on a second night of a back-to-back, but De'Aaron Fox is going to play 41 minutes. Domantas Sabonis is going to play 40 minutes. We're going to do it without our head coach, and we're going to do it while dealing with a maybe uneven whistle. So I was thoroughly impressed by how Sacramento was able to figure out how to win that game in game and not wait a week or 2 weeks to make adjustments for the next time they take on Toronto.
Absolutely. And they did it with their stars. Like it was really led by Fox and Sabonis, which I think is always a great sight, especially when Fox is just coming back from missing 2 games with a foot injury. I think Philly was his first game back, if I'm remembering that correct. And just kind of gauging his burst and consistency of burst. And then you saw him turn it on in that fourth quarter. And it was like, okay, this is the De'Aaron that we kind of got used to at the beginning of the year. And I thought that was great. Sabonis was dominant as usual. I mean, to have a 21, 20 and 7 game is just totally absurd while he's battling foul trouble. And I like that when he's still in foul trouble, his physicality never seems to really waver in any sort of way. Right. And this was a big bounce back game for Malik Monk too, who had really been struggling after getting a lot of momentum and seeming to have found his role to the point where Mike Brown is championing the idea for him to be sixth man of the year and being real vocal about it. And it didn't seem
put
all
your
that
foot
crazy.
on the table, Brenden.
Right.
If you're going to say Malik Monk, sixth man,
all right, let's take the shoe off. Let's take the shoe off. Can we all get a foot in the camera at the same time here? Is this going on YouTube?
Unless somebody's barefoot.
You got to pay for that.
I don't know if that's flexible.
You got to pay for that.
Yeah, that's a special thing.
Malik Monk,
no,
sixth man of the year.
Oh, I cannot.
No, I'm not. Of the year. Shout out to Frank.
Is that sock 90 years old, Brenden? Dear Lord, that sock is begging for death. My God.
But I thought it was.
You have a coffee stain on the bottom of your foot.
What's your socks, Matt?
No, absolutely not. Like I said, you got to pay for that.
Do you have some like candy cane socks, Christmas tree socks?
They're golf socks. Leave me alone.
Are you going golfing today?
No, as in they're socks that have. You know what?
Well,
fine. You know what?
Matt, are we messing up your tea time? You got your Tiger Woods?
I see why you didn't want to show us.
What do you mean you didn't want a golf sock? There's a little coffee stain on it. You dirty.
Whoa! This is a family program
show
here.
Wash your clothes.
You wash your mouth.
All right, like I said, I'm going to try and play the host role here and try and rein us in and bring us back to reality.
Real quick, because we are a basketball program. Brendan's point, I mean, and that to me is one of the biggest takeaways, or the biggest takeaways, that when the Kings have, not rocket science, but when your stars are producing at a high level, and we've seen it happen a lot. Like it happens at home. And I think I saw someone on Twitter say, I think it was, I can't remember who it was. You need your stars to be locked in and just at the top of their game on the road, and then your role players can produce at home. And I wish I could credit who said that. I saw it on Twitter last night. And it's a good point, because the Kings need Fox and Sabonis to be great on the road. And last night in the fourth quarter alone, Fox and Sabonis scored 18 points on 8 of 11 shooting. And then, like you said, Brenden, Malik Monk had a huge bounce back game. Really nice to see him get going. He had 9 points in the fourth quarter. So those three alone challenge or nearly outscored the Raptors in the fourth quarter. So when your guys, your core players are really locked in, and of course, Kevin Huerter was out last night, so some of their players need to step up. But when those guys are locked in, this isn't an easy team to beat on any given night. And even against a Toronto team that is a good home team, a good defensive team, and had most of their guys healthy. I know OG Anunoby was out last night, but the Kings, to me, that's an impressive win. So it's one that's up there.
Well, and something that stands out to me. Sorry, Chris. No, you host. You host, Chris. You host. Shut up, me.
Matt.
I just wanted to point out, while we're talking about the King Stars, just exactly how good Domantas Sabonis has been this month. In 7 games so far in the month of December, he's averaging just under 20 points a game, 19.9 points a game, 13.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists on 71% from the field. And here, boys, I don't think you're ready for this one. 80% from 3-point land. Domantas Sabonis is shooting 80% from 3-point land. Obviously,
lethal shooter.
An incredibly limited sample size. He is 4 of 5 from 3 for the month. But let's just talk a little bit about Domas and how impactful he's been. I mean, I was not expecting him with this incredibly tough stretch of bigs that he's gone against on this road trip. With it being the Brook Lopez, who's Defensive Player of the Year, Giannis, who is also in that Defensive Player of the Year candidacy, and then going against Cleveland's Twin Towers. The Knicks present their pair of Twin Towers a little bit with Mitchell and Julius Randle. I blanked his name because he gave us absolute buckets. And then obviously Embiid in Philly. And then last night, just the general size of Toronto. None of that has been a problem for Domantas Sabonis. Absolutely incredible stretch of play here. Go ahead, Matt.
Matt, you're ready.
No, geez, guys.
I don't know.
Figure this out. 4 is too many. Someone's got to go.
We're professionals. This is great.
Yeah, Sabonis has been great, man. I think that the entire identity of this team, not necessarily off the court, I think there's a lot of maybe louder personalities that the team seems to take on, but on the court, like, it's totally Sabonis, man. He unlocks everybody else. You definitely have seen, like, everybody's like, oh, well, the Kevin Huerter and Sabonis 2-man game is so good. The Malik Monk and Sabonis 2-man game is so good. The Fox and Sabonis 2-man game is so good. The common theme here is that Sabonis is so good at unlocking his teammates. And I just can't say that enough. And defensively, Like those numbers that you put up are all phenomenal, obviously, but defensively, I think he's been great. You know, I was just thinking that if he's not a negative out there, everything that he provides on offense, that's enough. But he's been genuinely impactful on the defensive end. It's not going to show up in normal blocks. He doesn't quite have the length to get his hand on the ball, but the physicality, verticalities that he provides, he's going to get a few more of those defense player of the game chains.
Well, yeah, and on top of that, too, he's been asked to anchor the Kings defense, which is something that he's never really done in his career, never really been known for. And to anchor a decent team defense is not an impossible ask and not an impossible task. I remember when Mike Malone was here, he asked DeMarcus Cousins to anchor the Kings defense. And DeMarcus was never known as a really, really good defender, but he knew how to, at least through that small sample size before he got viral meningitis, he at least figured out how he can be that anchor. And we've seen Sabonis figure that out. And what's most impressive to me is, especially in last night's game, is he has not backed away from the physicality period, even when that physicality has resulted in treatment from the referees that if I want to know anything from this season, I want to know what Domantas Sabonis did to piss off the NBA Officials Association, because they just, for some reason, do not like how Sabonis plays on the defensive end of the floor. Some of the most ticky-tack fouls on the planet. Now, Sabonis also does get whistled for good fouls when he tries to be a little too physical. But the fact that last night's game, he's coming off of back-to-back games where he got into some early foul trouble against the Knicks and against Joel Embiid and the 76ers, and he doesn't back away from Pascal Siakam. He's going right into the teeth of the defense offensively as well. And the fact that he doesn't shy away from physicality, living up to kind of that Ox nickname, I think that's something that the Kings rely on him heavily for as well. He is very much the foundation or the backbone of everything that the Sacramento Kings do. And that's why it doesn't surprise me that, I think, Frankie, you're the one that tweeted this out, like he and Chris Webber are tied in 2020 games, and Domantas has done it in like 43 games. Like, his importance, that speaks volumes to his importance. And it's not just statistically, it's what he means to everything that the Kings really do right.
You mentioned how important he is, though. And like in order to be important, you have to be on the floor. And we know that Sabonis has dealt with some foul trouble. And I think early in the season, it was him being overly aggressive. And this coaching staff has preached defensive, that aspect of the game is very important. And we've seen him make adjustments. But I know that the talking point around Kings social media, the Kings fan base right now, is officiating. And it just seems like the Kings have gotten a bad break for this entire road trip, really. And even earlier on in the season. And you've seen guys like Kevin Huerter who have come over to the Kings the first time, and they say, hey, it's different here. We do not get calls that I used to get in Atlanta. Other guys have told Kevin that the same things happen to them. They've come over from other situations, and they're not getting calls. I'm just wondering if you guys think, and I guess we'll start with you, Chris, because we're going by turn here. We're going by turn here. Do you think it's the name on the jersey? Is the reason why the Kings are not getting these calls is because of the fact that they are still seen as little brother, even though they've had a good start? They're still being seen as little brother around the NBA and just kind of like a footnote, because there are some things like last night. The final play of the game was egregious. Seeing Fred VanVleet two-hand push off De'Aaron Fox go flying. De'Aaron's bleeding from the face already from a call that was missed a play before. Is it because of the name on the jersey? I mean, is that what you think?
I personally don't think so. I would like, that's not deep state, but it's just like, why would the Kings be that punching bag? I guess you could argue that it's because it's easy, and you say like, oh, they're going to lose anyway, and that doesn't matter. But I actually, to plug our own content here, not ours, but the station content, Doug Christie was on earlier this season on one of our shows, and the host asked him a similar question, and he actually said that it is a thing. Like, you literally have to gain the respect of referees. And he used the example that only, like, I'm not going to do it justice because Doug is one of a kind, but he's like, back in the, now people are like, oh, whatever, like, it's the Kings, whatever, like, you can call it on them. But back then, like, it used to be, that's the Kings. So like, there was just a different level of respect that the team had. And so, yeah, I mean, strangely enough, I think I'm starting to kind of believe that it is a little bit of who the team is, and not so much just like, oh yeah, just all refs are bad and everyone experiences bad refereeing. It does feel like Sacramento does get a nice little Salt Bay special of some terrible referees.
So I'll play a tiny role of contrarian to start and then say how I actually feel. But the contrarian in me is look, we watch Kings basketball more than we watch any other team. And I think everybody who hyper focuses on one team is going to feel slighted more often than not. And I think just watching basketball in general this season, I've tried to do more than just watch Kings basketball. I think the officials have been just bad, period, this year. Like watching national TV games, just watching local games, like it seems like they're trying to do too much. And we're in an era in the NBA where tempo and flow and getting up and down and shooting threes, like that's what makes the NBA so entertaining. And you have officials sometimes directly working against that, slowing down the pace of a game, which kills a team like Sacramento where flow is so important. So I don't necessarily believe in conspiracy theories. I don't believe that the officials treat the Kings significantly different than other teams just because it says Kings on their jersey necessarily. But I will say this, the way that the officials have handled the Sacramento Kings this season has been ridiculous. The way they've handled Domantas Sabonis has been ridiculous. Last night, on the Locked On Kings podcast last night, I was laughing about the final play, but I watched it again last night after I was done with the podcast. And I actually ended up getting pissed off because the reality of that situation last night was when Fox was two-hand shoved literally right in front of the official. You can go back and watch the clip. The official doesn't even look at Fox. Now, one could say, okay, because he has to keep his eye on the play, but it almost looked like he's ignoring Fox completely and giving him the cold shoulder. De'Aaron Fox is not that good of an actor, ladies and gentlemen. He cannot, like a stuntman, throw himself and slide 10 feet down the floor. It's not who he is. There was definitely a push by Fred VanVleet. And to me, it goes further beyond just a missed call in that situation. And thankfully, VanVleet missed the shot. To me, it goes to a both a disrespect and an incompetence thing. Because at that point, you're treating De'Aaron Fox differently. Oh, I can say whatever I want. I'm not Mike Brown. De'Aaron Fox and Mike Brown have called the officials out. Fox got teed up. Mike Brown got ejected for pointing out the incompetence of the officiating. And at that point, the official went from, okay, I'm just bad at my job and missing calls to, no, I'm going to be an ass and I'm intentionally going to ignore this shove when minutes before you were bleeding, like Frankie pointed out. I'm going to intentionally ignore that just because I'm going to be an ass about it. Like that's where, when I don't think officiating is an easy job by any means. And I know they're humans too, and they don't deserve to be treated like crap. But at the same time, like if you have a job where you're supposed to be impartial and you're allowing your own personal frustrations, which I get are human, but you're allowing that to impact the decisions you're making or to slight somebody because you didn't like how they talk to you. Like, I think that's ridiculous from NBA officials. And I think that's happening a lot around the league this year, not just in Sacramento.
Yeah. What does a pissed off Matt George look like? Like when you go back and you're pissed off, is that like, damn, I got to record another segment and really let him hear it?
A lot of high pitched screaming and flailing of arms like a pool noodle. And yeah, that's pretty much
like a pool noodle. There you go. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's definitely frustrating. The shove on Fox was obviously ridiculous. Like that was by far the most egregious one of the night. The one that Fox ended up bleeding, like in real time, I actually admittedly didn't even see that much contact. But then when they play it back, it's like, okay, I think that obviously was a foul. But, you know, when it comes to fouls per game, Kings are 14th in the league. Like they're right around league average. It's really Sabonis, right? I mean, Sabonis is sitting at the 6th most fouls per game. But I think it kind of makes sense. Like they're asking him to do a lot defensively. He's an extremely physical player. And one of their staples on defense is being physical without fouling. And I think that's a way you make up for not having the natural defensive talent. And I think there's just kind of a balance there. Like, I'm not trying to say refs are perfect. There was a lot of BS calls. Last night was one of the most frustrating games when it comes to calls. But I think when you are an extremely physical team and trying to make up for a lack of natural defensive talent and length, that it's kind of going to be in the nature of it that you're going to get a lot of these whistles. So it's frustrating. I think more often than not, games are not decided by whistles, but it's definitely been frustrating, specifically with Sabonis. Like there are multiple with him where it's like, okay, how are you going to call that on him on one end, but then you're not going to give him a whistle on the other?
And there's a couple people in the chat that are saying, like Megan and Skip and Tosh that said, would De'Aaron Fox get more calls if he was an all-star? Probably. And that's kind of the messed up part about, you know, the NBA. They say superstar calls. I think those are a thing. And I don't want to say Fred VanVleet is a superstar, but I think he's obviously accomplished a lot more than some players in the Kings have. He's been an all-star and won an NBA championship, had a huge role in 2019. But yeah, I think if De'Aaron Fox becomes a perennial all-star in 2-3 years, we see him getting hit on the face called immediately. I think we see that push-off called an offensive foul. I do think that kind of changes those narratives. But yeah, I mean, like you're right, Brenden. I mean, I wouldn't say last night's game would have been dictated by the officiating. There's been some games that haven't really been dictated by it either. I think that the games that really stick out are the ones where there were no calls on Tyler Hero's travel. That had nothing to do with the foul. There was the Klay Thompson, that was a foul. Those are the ones that stick out this season, like that are really at the top of our minds. But yeah, it's still hard to see, but got to move on.
This question is kind of for Brenden, but right here, are we getting a Band-Aid Fox? What do you think, Brenden? Are we going to get a Band-Aid Fox? He was a big anti-Band-Aid guy when it came to Malik and his scratch on the face. Is there any chance that that we're going to see De'Aaron Fox with a Band-Aid?
Why is this question for me? Is it because I have Band-Aids in the
other
other
room?
Still?
It was because you thought it was really, really funny. You and I have talked about how funny we thought that dynamic was. That
we all have a little bit. Yeah. Apparently, Brissé Caldwell, De'Aaron's wife, as of late, it did say on Twitter that he was going to be wearing a Band-Aid, but that was in response to Chris Biederman, who I think went on the second half of the road trip saying that De'Aaron said he was not going to wear a Band-Aid. So maybe De'Aaron's getting talked into it, and we'll kind of see what ends up happening here. But I'm all for it. And it would be hilarious for it to happen after the crap that he talked.
It's wild that Malik's Band-Aid wearing annoyed De'Aaron so much that he doesn't want to treat or protect his open laceration on his face. Well, stitched up laceration on his face. He did say on Instagram, the Kings made a post and he responded saying like stitches like over a cut or something like that. So he's obviously still petty that Malik wore a Band-Aid over a scrape. And yeah, I think he has to wear a Band-Aid though. You have to protect your stitches, man. Like protect yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I want to
wearing a Band-Aid courtside. My life will be complete.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Yeah, that would. Or if we can get just Nelly to show up with his Band-Aid, I think that would be even better.
I would have guessed the Kings thought about reaching out to him during the Band-Aid craze, but wouldn't he be like the most expensive or most famous performer the Kings have ever had at halftime?
Nelly?
Hell no.
I mean, who is more famous than Nelly the Kings have had at halftime?
They had Little John perform.
Whoa. I think Nelly's bigger than Lil Jon.
You think Nelly is bigger than Lil Jon? Lupe Fiasco was pretty big.
Everybody in the chat, is Nelly bigger than is Nelly bigger than Little John?
I mean, who else did they had? They had
I mean, Drake has technically sat courtside. Kelsey Grammer
twins.
Also.
The guy that balances things on his chin is up there.
That was crazy.
The disrespect to Vanilla Ice.
Okay. They have Vanilla Ice like 3 times, man. Like he has Sacramento on speed dial.
Let's see. I don't know. We're splitting the chat here. Sorry, I'm focused on this Lil Jon Nelly debate. More people are saying Lil Jon, but there's definitely a couple people in here saying Nelly's bigger.
Bias.
Nelly has some good songs, but
Simone, what do you think?
Simone, you're gonna be
Lil Jon's worldwide, but I think she's gonna go with Nelly.
What was Nelly's last hit though?
That dumb
he doesn't
song.
Have turned down
Florida,
for what?
Florida,
you know? Come on.
Isn't it Florida Georgia Line? Isn't he on that song with Florida Georgia Line?
Yeah,
okay, well, he's fired. All right, no.
we work at a station. All right.
The best thing Nelly did. The best thing that Nelly did was be in Longest Yard with Adam Sandler. That was the best thing that Nelly did in his career.
It's a great flick. It's a great film.
Is he in that movie?
Yeah, he plays the running back, Earl Meggett.
Okay.
That's literally his name in the film.
You know the names too, man.
Yeah.
Well, wait.
That movie is phenomenal.
Paul Crew. That's Adam Sandler's name, right?
Paul Crew. Oh, how about we talk about a little bit? Has everyone in here seen Hustle? The fact that we were able to play Bo Cruz last night wasn't that a weird experience?
Yes. He got a lot of run. It seemed like Bo Cruz.
He did. Yeah.
Wancho last night. Where are you? 24 minutes. He had 5 and 5. Very Jason Thompson-esque.
Good for him. Proud of him.
Sorry for the strays.
Wow, JT catching strays for no reason.
He's a nice guy. I'm sorry for that. Sorry, JT.
Leave our rebound leader alone or games leader alone.
All-time games, bro. Get it right. Respect. That is a tough one.
I have a question for you guys as we get kind of back to the Sacramento Kings.
Is it about Nelly?
Yeah.
It's not
Or
about
Lil Jon.
Nelly, but it's, I mean, it kind of like is a call. I mean, the last time the Kings were relevant, Nelly was kind of probably top of the charts, right? I mean, back in 04, 05,
Is
02.
Nelly ever top of the charts?
Yeah, Hot and
I
Her
think
for sure, bro.
that had to have
Her?
been a number one record. Yeah,
Hot and
that
Her.
had to have been
That's what it is.
Yeah, Hot and Her. Do you think the Kings have proven, not proven, but are hinting at the fact that they are not yesterday's Kings? They're not going to repeat these same mistakes. I just want to know, do you think that culture, as far as has the losing culture sort of begun to evaporate? Because you see all the things that have happened with the chain, the beam, the way that the Kings have, I mean, the celebrations in the locker room and how much fun these guys are having together. It doesn't feel to me like, I think Brenden, you said it too, how you don't feel like when you look at who the Kings are playing on a nightly basis, you feel 50-50, I think, which is, I think, a huge upgrade from how Kings fans have felt in the past. Has this team moved on from that losing culture and started to build a winning culture? Are we on that road, Matthew George?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're on that road, but have they done it yet? No. I mean, I think it takes multiple seasons, and I think it takes adversity to reach where the Sacramento Kings are trying to go. And I look at the two biggest games that I draw the most conclusions from on a negative are the Bucks games and Celtics games, because these are two NBA championship caliber programs that the Kings hung with for a decent amount of time, and then when they needed to, they said, "Okay, sit the hell down. We're the Bucks. We're the Celtics. You're going to learn today." Like that, and that's how they play. And I think that shows that the gap between being good and great in this league is massive. And I think it's fair to say right now on December 15th, the Kings are a good basketball team. I think we've seen enough to say the Kings are a good team. And if we had come into the season and said by mid-December, we would know the Kings are good, I think we'd be throwing a parade in downtown Sacramento. But to get from good to great, I think you need to be knocked down a peg a little bit. I mean, it took the Boston Celtics losing in the NBA Finals last year. The Milwaukee Bucks, I mean, Giannis was an MVP before they won a championship. Like both these teams have dealt with adversity and taken a while to get to this point. So while I think the Sacramento Kings absolutely have a chance of being a playoff team this year, I would expect them to be a first-round exit in the playoffs. I hope they prove me wrong, but maybe that's what this team needs to then take the next step next year, and for Monty McNair to hopefully get a freaking second contract and then build upon that team next year and have De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis take that experience and go, okay, now we got to take this a step further. So, I mean, that's what I think this Kings team needs to still go through to change into a winning culture, but absolutely things are different. It's a team that accomplishes Vlade Divac's vision of getting along and having good people in the locker room. That was always super important to Vlade. They have that, but they also have kind of this flash and flair to them provided by certain players like Malik Monk and Chimezie Metu. And they have a good balance of sustainable scoring. They have a good balance of, the fact that they've, on the majority of their wins, they've had 6 or more scores in double figures, and it doesn't take De'Aaron Fox scoring 40 and Domantas Sabonis scoring 30 a night for this team to have a chance. Like that, everything the Kings are doing, they're absolutely moving in the right direction.
I like to just retweet Matt's answer. I mean, I agree with pretty much everything that was said there. I think that it is certainly moving in the right direction. And it takes a while, I think, to get the stink off of your franchise, specifically from people on the outside. Like I would think of fans of Eastern Conference teams aren't going to realize the turnaround that's been happening. And if it's not sustained, all it takes is this being an outlier year, like what we saw with the Jaeger year, where 39 wins, and it seems like a good feeling, like they're trending in the positive direction. If you go right back to another year of the same old Kings, like the Kings meme is not disappearing, you know? So I think that it certainly is headed in the right direction, but they have to keep it up. Like Mike Brown said at some point in this year that teams are actually like preparing for them now. It's not a surprise to teams anymore that what this team is, that they're going to be competitive, what their strengths are, and that they do have a handful of strengths. And maybe that wasn't always the case before. So I think that they're certainly trending in the right direction, but it's got to keep going up from here.
Meg in the chat was asking how many years of coaching does Mike Brown have and how many years did he miss the playoffs? I count about 8 seasons, and he made the playoffs in all of them except for 2. One of those, he got fired from the job in Los Angeles. He only coached 5 games. One of them, he went back to Cleveland in 2013, 2014, and they went 33-49. Then it goes to obviously the Golden State years. He was a huge part of those teams. And even early in his career with the Spurs, they were in the postseason each year. The Indiana Pacers in the early 2000s, they were in the postseason each year. So wherever Mike Brown goes, the postseason follows. So yeah, I mean, you're seeing it early in the season. Like you guys said, there's a lot that needs to happen for us to sit here and say, wow, this culture has officially been shifted. But when you see the wins, that obviously has a huge part in having a culture change. You have to win games. You can have fun. We saw it happen with the Scorers a couple of years ago. And it's surprising to me when I look back at those games, the schedule, and just seeing how it felt like the Kings were a lot better than they were. And I thought they were 4 or 5 games above 500 for most of the season, and they actually never got above 4 games above 500. So just interesting to see how it's so normal and it feels right. It feels like this team is in the place where it should be. Can they maintain it? Can they exceed it? Can they get to a place where we're in March talking about not just hosting a play-in game, but getting into the top 6? Because right now, the Western Conference is kind of an open race at this point. I mean, I don't expect the Kings to be at the top of the pack here in the 1 through 3 or 4 spots, but I don't think a top 6 finish is out of the question if they keep playing this way.
I think it's important to point out too, like Mike Brown has assembled a ridiculously good coaching staff here in Sacramento. Like, I didn't realize how good this staff was until I started seeing them together. From like, you get it kicked out of a game and Jordy is your backup. Like, and the fact that I thought it spoke volumes last night. You see the video of the celebration, Jordy getting his first NBA win, and the celebration after that. Who's in the background? It's Mike Brown pumping him up. And it's Mike Brown who allows Jordy to make that speech after the game. Like that speaks to, one, why Brown is such a phenomenal leader, and 2, why he's so well respected in this league. But you go from Jordy to Jay Triano. I mean, you have Luke Loutz, who did such a phenomenal job working with De'Aaron Fox one-on-one. We see the results of that. And of course, Brenden Nunes has talked to Luke about that. I mean, Doug Christie, of course, on that bench. Like, you go down the line and just go, there is so much freaking talent just working off the floor with these guys, that it's like, it's not hard to see why the culture is changing simply because of the get S done attitude that they bring to the practice facility and bring to shoot around every single day. It doesn't feel like there's a wasted moment with these guys, even if, and all 4 of us sit courtside and we watch shoot around, and like, Domantas Sabonis goes through a freaking workout and gets beat up pregame in the work that he puts in. De'Aaron Fox works very, very closely with Luke every single game on the same shooting routine. Like the culture that these coaches are bringing to the table, I think, is really significant.
I just want to make a quick point, Matt. You mentioned this earlier about how the Kings are at this point a good culture, working on building that road to be a great culture, and adversity is. I completely agree with you. I think the only way that you're going to kind of bridge that gap is by going through adversity at all levels, whether it be losing 4 in a row and then figuring out how to get things back on track, or like you mentioned with the Boston Celtics, where it is losing in the finals, getting so close, being up 2-1 like the Phoenix Suns were. They were up 2-1 and then end up losing the lead. Like, that's the kind of stuff, it really does hurt, but that is how you build culture, how like every game matters. If you watch the Boston Celtics this year, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are treating every game like they're trying to win by 30, and that's the kind of thing that you only get from being so close to having it and then not getting where you want to go. So I think that was an excellent point. But also it reminds me that, yeah, the Kings did go from a bad culture to a good culture and are working on a great culture, but how quickly it can slip right back to bad culture. And, it could be we can have a bigger existential conversation about this team where is there not a point, but if you're building this culture, they're kind of on a timeline that we all know. Obviously, Domantas Sabonis has this and next season. Could this culture be built up for 1 year just to be torn down halfway through next year? I don't know if we want to have that conversation now, but that's where my sad
a dose of I don't want to say like reality. But
everyone's trying to pass like, okay, you take that one. Go ahead.
Oh, we'll start with me. Okay, I get to answer the sad question first. No, that's something I thought about last night too. It kind of crawled into my brain when you see the video of Harrison getting the chain put on him, and
great video, by the way. Oh,
great video. Great
Should've
video.
gone to Mike Brown.
What a team. What a freaking team.
Kings media has been killing it too by giving us the behind the scenes look. And obviously the run has been a great production, but just the fact that we get to see these kinds of celebrations, it's pretty cool to see. But when the chain was being put on HB, the thought of, oh, he's an expiring contract and he's someone that the team looks to as a leader. He's someone that is widely loved within the locker room, the front office, the coaching staff, the fan base. I think have been very supportive of HB even through his ups and downs over this season. He's been a good King for 4 or 5 years now. And to me, he is a huge part of why this team is where it is right now. He's kind of just an anchor. And I thought about last night how if the Kings were to lose Fox for another game, or if Sabonis had to sit out a night, you look to a guy like HB who has the ability to be that 20-point guy. And he's someone that's so huge to me. And we know that Keegan Murray is someone the Kings are very high on, and his ceiling, I think, is to that or better than Harrison Barnes. And it's not really expected of him right now to be that guy, but HB is, and someone who can be a leader and is huge to this culture change, and someone I think that should be around for at least the next couple of years. And that's why I was a guy who in the offseason was a fan of, would have been a fan of if the Kings would give him an extension. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that. If you think it's time to visit that. I know, Chris, you're shaking your head no. Well, let me go back to you real quick before we go to Brenden. I mean, Chris, why are you out on a Harrison Barnes extension? Let's say it's a 2-year extension for $32. $32.
I'm in.
Sold.
32
Sold.
million.
That's a little heavy for me. I don't know.
You can
And
get
a Target
yourself
coupon to boot.
a large pizza and some twists from Round Table.
Give him a quarter per game.
32 million, like a 2-year extension in
yeah.
that neighborhood, 2-3 years. Like, you're not on board for that. He's only 30.
It's just, to me, it's just handcuffing yourself. Like, I just know what Harrison is, and Harrison is very solid. And you can do a lot worse than solid. You can also, I'm well aware, do a whole lot better than solid. And for me, I would just much rather, and I'll cross sport reference here. I would just so much rather take the risk on a Jalen Hurts than be okay with Matt Ryan being my quarterback. Like, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if that cross sports reference works, but it's more just like, I would much rather take a risk on a guy who can maybe give me something different than Harrison Barnes, who I know is super solid in all areas. And that's what makes him so great.
You're telling the Brenden Nunes line that's hinting at he's washed.
He's not washed.
Comparing it to Matt Ryan.
Have my back here. I was the only person saying he wasn't washed. People were trying to tell me he was washed, and I was like, "This is just who he is." Matt Ryan was.
Chris was just like, "No, he's been washed. This isn't new.
This is not new. This is just regular stuff. Like, this is how he be. He sucks for 4 games.
Chris Watkins hates Harrison Barnes.
Nah, no.
Get him.
I think Harrison is super solid. There's nothing wrong with Harrison Barnes. Again, like, he is a perfectly okay player to have on your team. I just think you could do a lot better, and I would rather you try and fit it with a role than, just try and, I don't know. I really feel like you can get a better player than Harrison Barnes. Not when you realistically look at the situation. No, you can't. Like, you cannot you can't just draft a Harrison Barnes at the 18th pick in the draft, or, Harrison Barnes isn't just available in free agency right now, or someone to replace Harrison Barnes isn't. And even if you trade him, you're probably going to get someone lesser than him. It's more just like, I don't believe that unless Harrison Barnes is less important on your team, you're just capping yourself, is more how I feel.
I am definitely taking a 2-year $32 extension.
32,
no question. First of all,
we got coupons.
Yeah, exactly.
Coops.
I mean, HB's been super frustrating to me also throughout the course of the time he's been in Sacramento, but that is only because you've gotten like moments of, wow, he can be amazing. And then you don't get that all the time. And you get these occasional moments where he's not great. But once you come to accept that, like, I think that he is a great player. I think that he is a really good starter in the league. Like, I think that it's important to have guys like Harrison Barnes that on any given night can be the second, third best player on a team. Like, I don't think if you're relying on him to have that consistent production, then, like, I guess more so my point is that like it was kind of on the team's construction in years prior rather than on HB. I feel like he was just being asked to be more than he was. And you need more guys like that, which this team has slowly started to build to make sure that you have a Buffalo Bills type of turnaround that's actually real and not a Minnesota Vikings turnaround that's just fake.
Whoa, relax. Hold on.
We're
this
throwing
just got
swords.
personal. Hold on. Someone hold me back.
We're throwing swords this morning.
Is anybody's wrist hurt from all the backhanded compliments that we're giving to Harrison Barnes right now? I think
just look. Go ahead.
No, look, like Monty McNair has made the right choice, and the right choice is taking the risk. Like taking the risk of losing Harrison Barnes. And I think we can learn a lesson from the 2018 season. Like Harrison Barnes is a way, way better player than Iman Shumpert is. And I know everybody loved Iman Shumpert. Iman Shumpert wasn't that good. He was just a fun personality. Like that's the reality of the situation. Sorry, Iman, don't put me in a diss track. But like the reality is like if the Kings were to trade Harrison Barnes mid-season, they run the exact same risk of killing the momentum that they did in 2018. And I think in a much bigger scale. I think Monty McNair is taking the absolute right risk. And I talked about this offseason, which is putting 1 year of Harrison Barnes on the table with this new group and saying, okay, we believe this team is going to be better. We believe this team is going to make the playoffs. Now, ball's in your court, Harrison. We are good enough now to where maybe you want to choose to remain here and continue to be a part of what we're building versus leave and try and get your final big contract on a contender elsewhere. And he very, very well may do that. But my issue has always been, if you're going to move on from Harrison Barnes, you need to do it for an upgrade. You're not going to do it to get worse. That doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely.
Where is that upgrade, and why would any team give you that upgrade for an expiring contract of Harrison Barnes unless you're dumping a boatload of picks into that? And I know there are certain players out there. I know people are infatuated with OG and Anunoby. I would love to have OG on the Sacramento Kings. I know Jonathan Isaac is another one that's brought up, although he hasn't played basketball since I was 12. Like there's so many pretty sexy option ideas out there, but we have to talk about what it takes to get that option. And then how much time are you willing to wait for that option to incorporate themselves into what the Sacramento Kings are trying to do versus you have someone here right now who maybe is inconsistent, who's the fourth or fifth option, which is a good thing. That's what Harrison Barnes should be, but he's ingrained in the culture. He knows what it takes to win, and he's well respected in the locker room. I think it would be an absolute mistake by the Sacramento Kings to get rid of Harrison Barnes at this point. I think you ride it out and run the risk of losing him.
Real quick, I do agree with you. I think he definitely does have his value, especially off the court as well. I'm seeing a lot of people in the comments mention that his off the court stuff is just as important. And I do think he is a big part of the culture for this team. And he is a terrific guy, like should be a senator when he's done playing basketball, because he's a perfect human being, it seems like. But I like, here we go. Here we go. I'm just saying, like, would you not like, so the prospect of trading for somebody like Kyle Kuzma, where it's like, again, that's more of probably my example of when I meant just something different, where you don't like, you just know what Harrison Barnes is. If you trade Harrison Barnes for Kyle Kuzma, I think that there is a world where in 2-3 years, Kyle Kuzma is a better version of Harrison Barnes.
Yeah. But there is value in like you said, you know what HB is. And like, while that can be a downside, there's also value in that.
Just here.
Right.
Which is maybe what the Kings need from that
Mendoza line.
Mendoza line.
I think that by the fact that they're like struggling to barely get a 6 seed, which again, like we are fine with now, but in 2 years, like in order to elevate your team, you have to take some calculated risks. And the most obvious glaring point of we can get better at this position, besides power forward with Keegan Murray right now, is small forward. That Harrison Barnes spot you can potentially get better at. And so that to me is the most logical place to take your swing. You could try and roll the dice again at point guard, but to me, Harrison Barnes, where especially in a league where small forwards to me are the most important position, it just seems like if you really want to be a legitimate contender, you should try and get a legitimate guy at that position.
So it's the minutes, like, or the role in the rotation that he has, not the money to you. That's what it is. It's the minutes / the role.
The money just also coincides with the fact that if you lock him down for a certain amount of money, you can't maybe pick up a backup who's like, you're paying Harrison Barnes starter money. I would much rather maybe not pay somebody starter money and try and get starter production out of them.
Well, I guess that's where it gets interesting, because if the Kings, let's say hypothetically, it's a hypothetical, so nobody get crazy on me. Let's say the Kings win 48 games and they finish 5th in the West.
Let's do it. I don't think that's too far out of the question.
Maybe Harrison Barnes takes a pay this is the best place for him and his family. Maybe he make maybe $9-10 million deal. Notice how I said million, not $10.
Right.
And maybe that's what good teams do. Players like to win games. And you see players take pay cuts across the league. Now, I think Harrison Barnes is going to have deals out there. If the Kings let him go to free agency, I think he's going to get paid. I think he will find a new home and get that money he's looking for. But maybe there's a situation where the Kings and Harrison Barnes can make it work because of how important he is to this young team who are coming onto the scene. But like you said, if that's what is concerning you, the minutes in the role, maybe his role over time does. Maybe Keegan Murray if Keegan Murray comes into his own, Harrison Barnes is not going to play minutes over Keegan Murray over the next 2-3 years. Like, it's just not going to happen.
So that's what I was going to say, is if he takes less money, it makes him more expendable or more, because he's just not going to do that. If he makes $8-9 million a year, then it's justifiable to potentially bring him off the bench and possibly pay more for another replacement or do something else.
Or you just bet it all on Keegan Murray. Put all your money on 13.
Not there yet. Black 13.
Harrison Barnes. Yeah. Still the reigning defensive player of the game.
Matt, you haven't talked in a while.
You're muted, my guy.
You're muted, Matt.
Vegas is so stupid. It's still freaking unbelievable.
Yeah,
Brenden
Vegas
Nunes, first trip to Vegas.
We had to push Brenden into participating at the casino, and Brenden was not willing to, and then he ended up just winning everything, and Matt and I had to go home with negative dollars.
And then while his ass is on his way to the cashier, who does he run into? Tyrese freaking Halliburton. So BS. Like, what the hell?
Best night of Brendan's life was in Vegas.
It was an incredible 10 minutes.
It honestly was
maybe the best 10 minutes I've ever seen someone have.
It was like out of a movie, I don't know. It was indescribable. Brendan had the best.
Frankie and I lost in 4 blackjack hands, and Brenden won in like 8, and then went to the freaking craps table, or no, not craps, or the roulette table, and won again. What the hell?
Cash out. Oh, there's Ty.
Congratulations. It was hilarious. I had no clue what happened. I was just excited that I won and turned around and Matt was in shambles.
Well, yeah, no, because I said black 13, put on black 13 for Keegan Murray. You didn't do it. And of course it hits black 13. Like, what the hell? Like, if I were to ever put anything on anything, I never get it right. But the one time I used my one bit of luck, you didn't do it, but you still put it on black and won, and I hate you for it.
So to bring this back, I think that if HB were to be moved on from, I would be very happy if he stuck around. I feel like it seems like a low chance, but to Frank's point, like, I don't think that it's impossible that if the team turns it around that he considers it. And I feel like coming into this year, I was absolutely guilty of this, but most people were talking about it like it was inevitable that he was going to walk away. And I think that there's a chance that that doesn't happen. But if he does, you sort of have the replacement in Keegan Murray, but then you still need another, right? Like, even the years prior, it was like, okay, the Kings need another Harrison Barnes, and maybe they have one in Keegan Murray, but then if HB walks, okay, now you need another one of those guys. And ideally, if you're taking a jump up to possibly talking about home court advantage in the playoffs type situation, I think that it's really important to have a really high caliber wing.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about this before I have to take off here is, like, what Chris is speaking to, I think, is Monty's mindset, which is, if there's an opportunity to improve my team, I'm going to do it. And I think he's been consistent with that his entire time here in Sacramento. He's always keeping his eyes out for the improvement. I don't see a realistic improvement where taking the risk of Harrison Barnes this season makes sense. Maybe this offseason something opens itself, but also every single year we get to the trade deadline and players become available that we don't think are available, or we would never believe are available, depending upon how their season is going. So we'll have to wait to get that context. The thing with me right now is I just don't see a scenario where trading Harrison Barnes makes enough sense or is enough of a sure thing for you to run the risk of completely well, I shouldn't say completely, but changing the culture of a locker room in a way that can have an effect that we've seen just a few years ago. So, I mean, I think this Kings team is better to overcome it than they were in 2018, losing Iman Shumpert. The fact that they lost Iman Shumpert and it had that big of an effect also speaks to how not ready that Kings team was. But I think, like, when you have, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. I know you want to improve and try and capitalize on your window as quickly as possible. But if there's success that you didn't necessarily expect, or you're ahead of schedule and you have a piece that's a major part of that, again, unless you're doing something, and this is almost impossible to do, but unless you're getting as close to a guaranteed improvement as you can get in the NBA, I think I'm very, very hesitant to pull the trigger if I'm Monty.
I hear you, and I definitely agree. Like, to me, that's going to be the reason why Harrison ends up staying, is probably because there is just no better option. You can't just replace him for the sake of replacing him. You can't do the Jay Crowder and Dario Saric or whatever for Harrison Barnes and realistically expect your team to be better. I agree with you on that front, and I do think if I were to rub a crystal ball, I would say that it's probably more likely that Harrison runs out this year than if he gets traded.
For clarity's sake, he is not washed. He is.
Thank you
very
for
much not washed.
Not washed.
Chris, do you concur?
Absolutely not washed. I also looked up the top 100 songs from 2006. If anyone's curious, last time
what are they?
The playoffs. It was "Bad Day," if anyone remembers, because you had a bad day. Yeah. Temperature by Sean Paul.
Great song.
Terrific song. Brenden, I don't know if you know that one.
You might not have been born yet.
Why do you call me out here?
You just didn't say anything about it being a terrific song, and it's a terrific song. So.
By the way, "Bad Day" was the walk-off song for American Idol, and I think that's perfect as a walk-off song for Matt George right now. I'm just trying to figure a segue to help him get it. It wasn't a shot, actually.
Did I just get eliminated from a show?
Yeah. I remember earlier when I said someone had
Thank
to go.
you for coming by. You are eliminated.
Because Nelly was in the top 5. Nelly Furtado with "Promiscuous."
I'm only coming back on Return to the War when Brenden Nunes is not here.
You're gonna boycott, and every time Brendan's on your boycott.
Yeah, him and his dirty socks. I ain't about it anymore.
It's the design, dude.
No, it's not. It's a coffee stain, and you're stupid in Vegas. I don't like.
They look warm.
No, they don't. They have a hole in the heel.
It was 32 degrees today. He's wearing warm socks, I think. Right?
I don't know.
This morning,
having this conversation.
They're not cold, so yeah.
Okay, well.
Anyway, so Matt has to go. Matt George.
Real quick, before you leave, because this is probably the last thing we're going to talk about. While we have you, I have you on till maybe mid-season because we don't like you, apparently. Maybe not again. What is your ceiling? What is your ceiling, Matt?
The end of Matt George. So let's get this in real quick.
Give me your quick ceiling for this team. Where do you think this team is heading today, or floor? I mean, where do you think this team is heading today on December 15th, the year 2022?
Well, their ceiling is sure as hell a lot higher than Harrison Barnes' Matt freaking Ryan. But
Matt Ryan was a bad example. It was more just I was trying to think of the most average quarterback that there is.
Jeez, again, backhanded compliment. Leave Harrison alone. The ceiling for this Kings team, like, I think it's real. I thought it was going to be a best case scenario for this Kings team to actually avoid the play-in and be like a 6th or 5th seed to be in a legitimate playoff series. I think I still think the ceiling is around that, but it's not as unachievable as I thought it was. Like a 6th or 5th seed with how crazy and close the Western Conference is. And I imagine some separation is going to start to happen when we get into January and February, but I think the Kings should be a part of the uptick of the separation, not the downfall. But regardless, like, I expect the Sacramento Kings to have one postseason game minimum inside the Golden One Center. They're either going to be an 8th, 7th, 6th, or 5th seed. Like, I feel like that's not out of the realm of possibility to say. At this point, I would be disappointed with the Kings being 9 or 10 in the West. So that's my expectation. I guess my floor, Frankie, is like 9, and I'm disappointed with that. Although it would be postseason basketball. It doesn't count towards the playoff drought, but at least it would be more than 82 games.
Brenden
had a bad day.
All right, I'm out of here.
Just pushing him out.
I hate this guy. Hey,
Goodbye,
put some stuff
Matthew.
up on your walls, Brenden. Jeez,
Seriously, I just moved in, man. You have nothing behind you. What are you
I'm moving
talking
out, bro.
This is therapy for all of us, by the way. This is a King's
Unbelievable.
King's media therapy session.
Yes, apparently.
Oh,
I think I'm on board with Matt.
I don't
believe
care.
it or not.
I don't care what you think.
I think
Let's go to
ceiling
Vegas.
is around like 46 wins, which is what the Pelicans did last year. I think that's sort of what we're talking about, where you'll be in a play-in situation. You could give a team a pretty good run in the playoffs, but I would be shocked if they ended up winning a playoff series. I guess like absolute ceiling, like we believe Warriors on some crazy outlier stuff, but like that's
first round win,
the most outlier thing there is. I do not think they will beat the MVP as the 8th seed in the first round of the playoffs. But I think like 46 wins is a somewhat realistic ceiling now, and I don't know that I ever would have believed that at the beginning of the year, to be honest.
I agree. I guess what Matt said. So we can come on, boys. Stop fighting. What my ceiling is also. I'm gonna go 6 seed or 7 seed. Like I think that they're a team that can for sure either be the leader in the play-in race or not even have to worry about the play-in and just finish 6th. But to me, at this point, if this team really is even close to where they are right now, the play-in is a disappointment. 9-10 is a disappointment. I think that they have proven they are one of the top teams in the West at this point. Obviously, injuries can derail things, and maybe some teams that are waiting in the weeds figure some things out, like the Clippers and Minnesota struggled. Maybe some teams like that can figure their offenses and defenses out. But the Kings are good, and that's enough for me right now. The Kings are good.
Except for Harrison Barnes, apparently.
Yeah.
Except someone said, Kirk Cousins, come on.
Yeah, should we talk about the ceilings of the Vikings?
Kirk is definitely like the example, the current example of just like an average quarterback. But I've tried to use that example before, and people didn't like me saying Harrison Barnes is Kirk Cousins because apparently.
So Matt Ryan is better. That's
it was just like, who is your most average quarterback?
Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy is another great example. I'm sorry, I should have said. And Daniel Dimes is
Dimes.
Daniel Jones is Harrison Barnes, and I want Jalen Hurts, who it looks like he could be at one point looked like he could be a discount. Anyways, whatever. It doesn't matter. Point is, it was a bad example. I'll work on him. Point is, Harrison Barnes is okay, and I want better. Sorry.
Chris.
Okay. Yeah, I think the Kings can absolutely be a 6 seed, by the way. I think that there's kind of a clear pecking order at the top of the Western Conference right now. It feels like the Pelicans are definitely up there. Brenden, I see you smiling. What do you
because Deuce just posted a picture of apparently my dirty ass socks.
I did see this. I am going, let's see if I can pull this up here.
Thank you, Deuce.
Share screen.
That's not close. Is it
100% accurate? Yes.
There we go.
Can we get another sock
This
shot?
is a design. Yes, I will stand on my damn chair right now. Look at this.
Brennan's
this
dirty
is a
socks.
design, people.
Let's get a sock shot.
Fall. I am going to fall.
Here we go. Here we go. He's going.
Look at this.
Oh
it's
my
the
God.
design.
Oh my God.
No,
it's the design.
Stains on that.
Can we have a rolling in the chat?
That's what that's supposed to look like.
Yeah. What is it like? Sharks with stripes and coffee stains? Like, what's the point? Like,
that's the first time I've ever stood on this desk for a podcast.
You're right.
It won't be the last.
It will not be the last.
It will be. I don't know.
Now this will be a
Things
segment
get crazy here on Return to the Roar Live.
The gold Kings jerseys of socks that you're wearing.
NBA Jersey Day was the other day. What's everybody's favorite jerseys?
I need to leave.
Well, play yourself off. Here, I got it.
I know.
I'll play. Actually, we'll play it for you, Matt.
No,
hello, my darling. Do you just want me to take you out, Matt? Is that what you're asking for?
Just gonna say goodbye. I love you guys. You're great.
All right,
Brenden,
Matt. You're
clean
great.
your socks.
There it is.
Tell whoa, copyright strike.
Oh, true.
It's gone. No, you get 15 seconds.
Cut that.
Cut that. You get 15 seconds.
All right. That was our buddy Matt George, best friend of Kevin John.
So wait,
love to talk with Matt. ABC 10.
Shut up, Matt.
Go ahead.
Should we end it with So wait, I want to know what your guys' favorite Christmas movie is.
Bro, someone asked me this. Yeah, I'm gonna go 3 heads if this is all right. Is this better?
Sure.
Should I go? Should I go the other option?
Sure.
A little close.
Shoot.
Yeah, favorite Christmas movie. Someone asked me this the other day, and I kind of realized that I haven't seen a lot of Christmas movies, and I feel like Brenden also is the exact same because he hasn't seen any movies. But like,
You're
when
a
someone
kid.
asked me, initially, the first thing that came to my head was Harry Potter.
What
is that? God,
what?
There's a Christmas scene in it.
That doesn't make it a Christmas movie.
Well, that's a conversation I'd like to have though, real quick. If there's Christmas in the movie, can it be a Christmas movie?
I was just talking with someone about this the other day.
Like, no. Like, if we're talking like a category of Christmas movies, I don't care what somebody plays on Christmas. You can play whatever movie you want on Christmas.
Well, I know you're watching.
What is a Christmas movie? I am watching basketball all day on Christmas.
I mean, like the season of Christmas. Like, don't you watch anything Christmas?
I'll probably watch like Elf one time. Like, Elf was my movie growing up.
That's exactly what I said. It's literally the only Christmas movie I can name that I've seen.
Did you see the edit that Sabonis posted of?
Yeah. Oh my God!
Incredible.
It was
Elf.
the funniest thing. Yes.
Incredible.
So funny, man. So funny. If anyone hasn't seen it, go look at Domantas Sabonis' Instagram. He was Elf. It was great.
So yeah, I mean, I have not seen Home Alone. I tried to watch it the other day and I fell asleep. That's kind of Matt is super salty.
You waited till after Matt. I know. What is your favorite movie? Is it like is it Scrooge or
you know what? I will say this. I don't know. Sam, can you hear me? My girlfriend's here. My girlfriend's favorite Christmas movie is The Grinch, the new animated Grinch movie. Pretty damn good.
With Benedict Cumberbatch,
yes,
right?
Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah. Pretty damn good. If I had to recommend one, it would be that.
Allie, my girlfriend's favorite one is the other Grinch, the one with Jim Carrey. She loves Jim Carrey.
Oh, she also loves that one too. Yeah.
I'll get back to you about my girlfriend's favorite one.
Yeah, dude. She goes to different school, but I'll ask her. I'll ask her.
She goes to a different school.
Later.
So Megan's like, y'all made Matt have a bad day. Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that. Honestly, sorry about that. You know, he can cheer
the Matt Ryan of podcasts.
Yikes. Ouch. Ouch.
Well, now it's just turning into Pile on Matt George hour here. No. Does he deserve it though? I don't know.
Whoa, no, of course not. Why is that a question? I love Matt. Well, Matt works his butt off.
Even though he went at you about your socks, you're being the bigger man and you're gonna say he doesn't deserve the slander.
He does not. He also gave me a shout out for talking to Luke Laux when we were supposed to talk to him together and didn't even mention that. Matt was absolutely supposed to be a part of that. Matt is a bigger person than me for sure. Much respect to Matt, Locked On Podcast. I think he does great work.
That's actually funny because as I see here, Matt George puts in the comments, I hate Brenden. Interesting stuff. We'll see how that develops.
How about this? Just a little bit of basketball. What is the best Christmas Day NBA game that you've ever seen?
Oh man, that Warriors Cavs one definitely sticks out. I think
Kyrie turnaround game winner.
Yeah, Kyrie turnaround, right. The same way he ended the finals. That was an incredibly fun game. Those jerseys were so terrible though. Do you remember those? They were like awful. Color rush essentially, where it was, I think Cleveland was all maroon, Golden State was all blue with the gold font, and it's like in curse. Terrible stuff.
There was a game on Christmas a couple of years ago. Was it 2008? Yeah. It was Roger Mason Jr. Roger Mason hit a buzzer beater for the Spurs over the Suns, and I remember I was in like 8th grade, and I thought it was like the coolest thing I've ever seen. That one's on the top of my list. But you know, I was thinking about how we all cover the Kings, and an ad for Christmas Day games came up, and I thought about how what if the Kings play? Would you enjoy going to a game on Christmas, or would you kind of be like, ooh, I would rather them not play on Christmas?
I would love it.
You'd love it.
Maybe that speaks to my family dynamics, but I would love it.
Give me an excuse. It kind of depends on the time. Like if it's the later game, like probably, later on, and all the business side of Christmas gets done in the morning. Open the gifts, maybe you hang out with family during the day.
Business side,
if it's a 5-6 o'clock
paperwork.
Right.
You got to fill out all the stuff and
knowing how the NBA does things. If the Kings, which they will play on Christmas again someday, I don't know when, but let's say the Kings have this trajectory right now, it would start with the road game. They'd probably play like the Pelicans on the road in like 2024. Then maybe if they make it to the second round of the playoffs, they maybe host a game like in 2025 or 6. Like that's the trajectory. I'm just wondering, like, who knows where we'll be at that point? Brenden might have 3 kids by then. We don't know where we're all going to be in 2026. What? What? You have a girlfriend? I thought you had a girlfriend at our school.
I do. And we're all going to be at a Christmas party together with our significant others, right?
Absolutely.
Watching, you gotta ask that on the live.
Watching the new version of Grinch.
Exactly.
And Matt George
I didn't know there was a new version.
Matt George will definitely be invited.
Yes, of course. Matt's invited to everything. I need his professional advice anytime I make a decision. It seems to work out all right. So
you're a bigger man. Bigger man than I. Anything else you guys want to talk about? We're kind of talking Christmas stuff at this point, but I mean,
what's your guys' like favorite obscure NBA player? Like, there's Keon Clark, Lawrence Funderburk are some good Kings examples, but just like Tony Delk,
Mikhail Petrovich.
Wow. I just like the name, just fond memories.
No, yeah, like he was just a dog, and that's my type, apparently. And
right.
I just try to think of a random guy from a while ago that I enjoyed.
You were a big Rondo guy, not that that's obscure.
I was, but that wasn't obscure enough,
Right.
I do have like a Jamias Ramsey poster back there, which Jamias and Robert Wooder are on the same G League team now, and they played 2 games in a row in Stockton, and I didn't go to either one. I don't know what is wrong with me.
I saw Jamias had a nasty throwdown.
He did. And I just,
So you're not a true Jamias fan?
Apparently not. I'm a fake.
You're being exposed.
I'm curious.
Exposure going on today.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people end up have legitimate conversations about the Stockton guys. What do you think is like the actual realistic projection for? We'll just do the 2A guy, the Nemi and even we'll do Chima too. Nemi, Chima, and Keon Ellis.
Yeah, it's hard to think of like
realistic,
legit player comps. Right. I think like if you're dreaming about these guys of like ceilings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keon Ellis, like, is it like a Danny Green type?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like. It's just an elite 3-and-D guy, right? Like he honestly can't dribble. He had, I forget if it was more turnovers or more assists, but the fact that it was close enough to be a question in my mind during his couple years at Oklahoma. Thank you. Yeah, no, you're right. It's Bama. That I think that speaks in itself, and he doesn't have great size, right, to go with his defensive versatility, which is something like Davion deals with. So I think you're talking about a little bit of an undersized 2 that can maybe be a 3 and then just hit shots. I think that Nemias is like there's lower tier starting centers in the league that you can get away with being starter tier. Like, could Nemi be that eventually? Sure. I think that he'll probably be a backup big in the league, but I think it's just getting used to being the size that he currently is. Like if you go back and look at Utah State pictures of Nemi, he was really thin at first. And like just his learning curve is ridiculous. Like came to Utah State and hardly spoke any English. You would have no clue now based on how he talks. He speaks great English. He looks so thin. He's like the biggest human I've ever seen now. So I think that you're definitely seeing growth there, but it's just got to be continued progress. And then Chima, like, I think
like you and I have talked about it, like Bruce Brown kind of, right? Where it's just like a dirty,
PJ Tucker,
not a shooter. Yeah.
I mean,
he's probably a better shooter. Like Chima's just kind of all around the rim. And he's just kind of a big, like, is he, Frank, like, could you see him being like a Quincy Acey kind of guy?
Yeah, I mean, does he have that bounce? Like, I haven't really gotten to see a lot of Chima. Does he have that bounce, Brenden? I mean, I know you spent some time down in Stockton.
I do think that he is a ridiculous athlete. He was finishing, and I should have my Chima piece out later today, but I admittedly have been saying that for a little while.
Plug.
But I think he was finishing somewhere a little higher than like 55% from the field, and he's shooting really poor from three, but he's still finishing really well. And when I asked him, he was just like, well, like I was like, what's allowed you to finish so well around the rim this year? It seems like, and he cut me off. And he's like, no, I've been horrible. Like, he's like, usually I'm finishing around like 70% around the rim. I'm like, damn, bro. Okay. Like, so he expects to be a really good finisher around the rim. And he did that during his time overseas. It's different in the NBA, but I think he could eventually get there. Like, coach talks about him in the same way as KZ, like that sort of lengthy defender that just brings a lot of energy and has versatility, and then just plays his role on offense.
He's also a really big rebounder, isn't he?
He's a ridiculous rebounder. Last I checked, he was leading the G League in rebounds per game. He's actually down to 5th now, but 11.7 per game. Yeah. Bobby Jackson said that's the reason he's in the NBA.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of Frank. Do you have any thoughts?
No, I mean I'm just learning from you guys. I need to spend more time down in Stockton. We've been meaning to go down there, but I know that Brenden has been. He spent a couple days down there, so
a couple times, 4 or 5 games, right?
Been a couple times, yeah. 3, I think 4, something like that. So
yeah, it seems to me like Nemi's path is kind of, like you said, just kind of a backup center. I don't know if he'll ever. I feel like his era of center, like the kind of center he is, just isn't found too often right now in the NBA. He's not, Nemi's a pretty big guy now, like you said, but he looked a lot more like Nerlens Noel in college than he did Steven Adams or Jonas Valanciunas. So I don't think he'll ever be like one of those really beefy, strong centers that we see in the NBA. And hasn't shown the ability to really be anything special on the rebounding end. So I don't know, it feels like backup center is kind of the ceiling for him. But even then, it's like not often do you see a big lumbering guy as a backup center. Like Robin Lopez comes to mind. Alex Len. But even, Alex can't get minutes on this team. You see that even they would much rather go with Mezzi, who's just more mobile, more versatile on the defensive end and allows them to do some similar stuff on offense. But I just don't know if Nemi is a dinosaur, essentially. Is he just kind of a relic of a way that the game used to be played and it can't really be played in the NBA anymore? That's my concern with him.
Yeah.
And Keon,
maybe
not so much, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to see him play more. I mean, Nemi got a shot the other night and it didn't go very well. I mean, again, a little over aggressive on defense, and you're going at Joel Embiid. Right. So I want to take that with a grain of salt, but I'd like to see more of Nemi so we can kind of get an idea of what we're working with at the NBA level. I mean, I think he's 23 now, 23, right? Brenden, is he 23, 22, 23?
Nemi?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, probably. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, I definitely know that.
In college for 3 years. That sounds about right.
He is 23. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, see what we have. See what you have in him. And I mean, I think the Kings obviously need to be in a better position before they can start rolling. Like either it's late in the game and it's garbage time, or it's because of injury. I don't know if you can just kind of throw him into the rotation. They obviously want to go find someone more proven to be a backup center, but at some point you need to see what you have.
Yeah. Do you guys think that Rashawn playing yesterday, and it was I'm curious. First off, do you guys think that was a Jordy decision, or do you think that's just something that they discussed at halftime? Like, hey, let's give Rashawn the Mezzi minutes this half.
It's weird, right? Like, my first reaction to it was like, does this have anything to do with Jordy running the show?
Right.
But that just feels wrong to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'd imagine everybody's on the same page. They clearly have a good relationship. I don't think there's any like weird disagreements between them. And I certainly don't think that Jordy's going to get his opportunity and all of a sudden be like, I've been trying to tell
I got all the power now. Yeah.
Yes. Now I can finally get my opportunity to teach this guy. Like, no, I definitely had that thought, but I would be shocked if it was just Jordy trying to prove a point or something.
Rashawn played well in garbage against Philly as well. He scored, I think, 6 in the final quarter. I mean, it was, like I said, garbage time.
Now,
but,
man.
He's still a good player. Still a good player. I think he needs to be put in the right position. And now that's December 15th. I mean, everybody's is available to be traded now. So I think we could see some more moves sort of come together. But What do you guys think it's going to take for the Kings to move him? I mean, I think the biggest holdup right now is the contract. I think he has 3 years and $33 million remaining on his contract.
Right.
That's a good amount to take on. I was wondering, we heard Sam Amick on with Dave this morning talk about how maybe it would take a player like Terrence Davis to attach. That would hurt. I think the Kings have had a lot of success with TD, and TD's been a huge part of the second unit. I think he even is one of like the I can't remember which stat it was, but he's like at the top. I don't know if it's plus, box minus. I don't know, but he's up there as far as one of the more valuable members of the bench this year. So I was wondering if it took something like that to move Rashawn, do you just kind of hold on to him and see if you can make it work? Or do you part with parts of the team that kind of would sting a little bit?
I mean, I'm probably not dumping him. I'd have to get a better feel of what their financial situation is, if they can clear up substantial cap space this offseason, which I want to say they can, but I probably shouldn't talk without knowing, because I know HB's coming off the books. There's a couple other guys, Mezzi and a couple others. So maybe if there's somebody you had in mind and excuse me, you felt like you had a decent opportunity to chase, then maybe. But I feel like in my mind, what it takes is like some team desperately needing a center, like, because I am believing this less and less every day, but I still think that he's a starter in the league. Like, he was really good. And I don't think that somebody just loses that. You know, I think that my biggest realization is he does need somebody to set him up. Like, Tyrese was really good at that. De'Aaron was really good at that too. It's just that they went away from that style, you know, but that push shot that he has, that my favorite is Doug Christie saying patent pending. And that is still very much pending because we just haven't seen it enough.
Right.
Like, he has to catch the ball in that spot. In there's, you know, there's a kind of a range of spots in that sort of elbow extended area, but he has to catch it there and then instantly go up. He's not taking a dribble or a couple dribbles and then pushing it, or he's not like passing from there, you know, like he has to be in a heavy pick and roll offense in my mind. And then he's a starting caliber center. Like, and I think his switchability on defense, I thought was good in years prior. I don't honestly understand why Mezzi can switch on defense, but Rashawn can't. Like, that doesn't make much sense to me. So I don't know. I think it takes a team desperately having a hole or vacancy at the center.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just kind of like you look around, and I do think he's starter quality. It's just, it's got to be on the right roster, on the right team. Like, not every team can operate with a guy like Rashawn Holmes at center. And that's not a knock to Rashawn. It's just the way that the game is played today. Like, not everyone needs, you know, some people would value, like the Celtics run beautifully with having Robert Williams at their center. Having a center like Rashawn Holmes might muck up things for them. So I think that's kind of the biggest hurdle, is looking for the perfect team to trade for them. And, you know, Charlotte has always been a team that people have thrown out. That's, you know, you can maybe get PJ Washington, has always been somebody that the Kings fans have talked about, or, you know, maybe he gets involved in a Kyle Kuzma deal or something like that. I don't quite know how those numbers work out, but maybe, you know, you could do, I definitely don't think these numbers work out, but like Barnes and Holmes for Kuzma and Daniel Gafford or something. Like, I think Daniel Gafford would work really well as the type of center, backup center the Kings need. But there's a ton of teams. I'm seeing Bryant right here, Bryant West in the comments here, put that Holmes should head to Toronto. They clearly need centers. Like, yeah, I mean, Toronto as a team, I think has been mentioned. Rashawn has been mentioned around. So I think that's the tough thing, is just kind of finding that dance partner to go with Rashawn, and then matching up value, because it is kind of beauty's in the eye of the beholder in that case, because it's really like, how do you want to use him? Like, the Kings were essentially going to pay him $11 million to be a backup. And I think for whatever, do you think that a big part of him not getting playing time, he did struggle at the start of the season, but do you think it is just kind of keeping him healthy for this period of time when he's available to be traded?
I mean, maybe. I think that if he was on Mike Brown's radar, he'd be playing. I think if he was someone who Mike Brown thought would make this team better, he'd be playing every night, and he'd be in that backup center role, because we've seen Chimezie. He's looked good in flashes, and he's looked bad in some regards. And I think he's kind of had a bad stretch here, and he's really kind of being used as a rim runner, and you like him on the lob and in those types of situations. But I think if Rashawn, when maybe with Jordy last night, he just wanted to switch things up. But to me, it's still kind of interesting that Rashawn is so far out of that rotation, because I think that he is someone who could make a positive impact, even more so than Chimezie Metu in certain situations. I mean, to me, I think a by committee basis would have been the best way to handle it. And you play Chimezie against some of the more athletic bigs in the league, and you throw Rashawn out there for more of the stationary guys in the league, like throwing him out there against Brook Lopez, which I think he's had trouble with Brook Lopez in the past before, but I just like him better in that situation. But
yeah,
I think that Monty McNair's probably got that near the top of his list, finding Rashawn a new home. I do think that Rashawn's handled the situation pretty graciously. I think he's been pretty, you see him in the picture last night having a great time with his teammates. He hasn't been a distraction. He hasn't done what some other players, who shall remain nameless, have handled, wanting to be traded over the past couple of seasons. And that to me is huge. It just speaks to his character and speaks to who he is. But yeah, I mean, I think that finding him a new home has got to be at the top of Monty McNair's list.
Yeah, it's definitely weird that he got a Bagley and then, got a bag and then, just kind of disappeared. It doesn't really make sense. Doesn't really make sense.
Throw that back out there.
Stop it.
Matt's never coming back on again. He's not gonna want to come on with us again. I love Matt too. Matt's a great guy.
So do I. Obviously.
Anything else? I mean, we've been on for 90 minutes.
I know we have. We're doing a good job.
Pulling a King's feet over here.
Time to rebrand.
Yeah. Let's see here. Is there anything? Well, we'll do a little. I'll take a little bit from my show, and let's do a little forecasting here.
Okay.
The Kings close the road trip in Detroit on Friday, and then don't play again until Monday at home against Charlotte, and then Wednesday they play our most hated rivals in the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's just give the next. Well, you know what? And then on Friday they play the Wizards as well before doing a back-to-back against the Nuggets. So we'll just do until the Wizards game. Next 4 games: Detroit, Charlotte, Los Angeles, Washington. Seems to me like 4 very winnable games. Is it kind of 3 or 4 wins or bust here? Not bust, and by bust it's like or disappointment.
I'm almost expecting 3-1. Maybe that's being a little bit greedy, but I'm expecting 3-1. They're coming home for a good amount of time here. A couple of weeks they'll be at home, and that's time to take care of some business. The road trip, if they can split the road trip, like I said earlier, a 6-game split on the East Coast, that's pretty incredible to me. That's something you got to hang your hat on, especially when you look at the fact that you're playing multiple top 10 defenses here in Milwaukee, Philly, Toronto. The Kings are going to come out 3-3. That's pretty great in my opinion. So I'm looking at 3-1 over this next couple of games. Got to take the Laker game though. Got to take the Laker game.
Have to. Most important one.
Have to take the Laker game.
Go 1-3 for all I care.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same. I think 3-1 is sort of what I'm expecting, but 4-1, 4-0 feels reasonable as well, you know? So I think that the team is for sure performing well when we can look at next 4 and say that like they should probably be favored in all of them. Like this isn't the most high caliber opponents or anything, but when's the last time like you felt like you could comfortably look at a Kings schedule and be like, they should probably win these next 4 games, you know? So, and Washington has been really good this year. If I'm not mistaken, they've been, they've been really good this year. They're riddled with injuries, but they have different guys stepping up. Like Detroit can, on any given night, you never really know. Like these are still all NBA caliber teams that have their strengths. The Lakers have been rolling. Like that's probably the Lakers and Washington games are probably the 2 most difficult ones. But I thought that the New York game was going to be the easy one and the Toronto was going to be the hardest one. And look how those went. So who knows?
Yeah. Washington has been good this year. I will say I did just look at their schedule.
Yes.
And they have lost 8 straight games. And they are 1-9 in their last 10. But they were good before that. They are currently 11-18. And they've lost 9 of their last 10. So they were good at one point. Absolutely. When I was checking in on the Wizards, they were right at 500. And Porzingis was playing well. Beal was playing well. Clearly, I don't know. you and I both have not been keeping up on the Wizards, but
Yeah.
things are not going well.
Apparently
things are not going well in I believe they call it Chocolate Town.
Yeah, Charlotte also 7-21.
Chocolate City.
Chocolate City. Looking at teams that have lost, I mean, 8 in a row, and then in Washington, 7-21 in Charlotte. I mean, the Kings, they have to take care of these kinds of games at home. I mean, if they lose to Charlotte or Washington, it's a very bad loss.
Yeah, I think Friday,
the Lakers have been playing better. Like the Lakers have been playing better.
Right. That'll be a very fun game. I think Detroit should be a win. There's not really any reason why without Cade Cunningham, unless it's going to be a real Jaden Ivey revenge game, that the Kings shouldn't take care of that one. The Hornets, LaMelo's back. That shouldn't matter. Though last time they played the Hornets, it was way too close for comfort. That's for sure. Lakers, you mentioned, tough opponent. They're getting better. Anthony Davis. I don't think people fully remember how much Anthony Davis absolutely cooked us in the preseason. I think he had a double-double in the first quarter in the preseason. I know it's preseason, but the Kings just cannot match up with Anthony Davis. Not expecting fun things for that one. But
no.
I think that they should go 4-0, honestly.
Okay, but you heard it here first.
Before we get out of here, can we revisit this Chocolate City thing? Is that a thing?
Chocolate City is absolutely what they call Washington, D.C., if I'm not mistaken.
Like, is it Willy Wonka's factory there or something?
Let me see here. Chocolate City.
And shout out Meg for saying, is that what? You're saying Washington, not Charlotte?
Washington, yes. DC.
Oh, okay.
Chocolate City, Washington. What?
No
Chocolate City.
Goodbye to Chocolate City.
Type in Chocolate City.
I type in Washington, D.C., Chocolate City. It says that it used to be called Washington City, but is no longer referred to as Chocolate City. So there you go.
Be careful just blindly searching Chocolate City. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Apparently, it was a film in 2015. Can't really repeat what the film is about. I will just say it's probably not
an adult film, or
no, it's not that. Not there, but it's not. It's very very Magic Mike. Very Magic. It's very Magic Mike. Yeah. Oh, like Magic Mike-esque, like kind of a theme. Like it falls in line.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that is not why they call it.
Right. Probably a Christmas movie. You know, if they filmed in December.
Definitely. The mistletoe is. You might want some mistletoe for that one.
Oh my goodness. Bro.
A couple leaves or whatever you call mistletoe.
People are talking about we probably shouldn't talk about this on air.
Matt got me in the comments.
We might have our bosses watching this.
Yeah, very true.
The one film Brenden has seen, of course.
That's his generation.
Matt George still in the comments.
God.
Oh, I love it.
All right,
First of all, thank you to everybody.
Get out of here.
Yeah, thanks everybody who was joining us. I mean, we had a lot of fun talking to everybody about Chris's movies, Brendan Socks, Matt George's misfortunes in Las Vegas, and now apparently Chocolate City, 2015, not Academy Award nominated film. But thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah. And I'll just mention Chris knew of Chocolate City before any surge, so I think that's
I did know of Chocolate City. I just I honestly got scared. I was like, is that a no-no? Is that not something I should say? Is that
definitely a no-no?
All right.
That brain of yours, man. That brain of yours is incredible.
For Brenden Nunes, for Matt George, for Frankie Cartoscelli as well. My name is Chris Watkins. Thank you all for listening so much. Bye-bye.